Welcome back to Romero and Van der Ven are actually way better than Gabriel and Saliba.
Bro, how don't you know that?
Hold that. On Sunday afternoon, Arsenal triumphed in the North London derby on a beautiful day down at the Toilet Bowl. After weeks of hearing nothing but nonsense about how every Spurs player is apparently better than ours, to win at their ground for the third time in a row for the first time in our history without our entire first-choice midfield and a bench with an average age of about 14 was so special. Gabriel, bullet header, oosh. Nico Yover FC, baby. This is meant to be their best manager of their modern era, by the way. They are tin pot. Arsenal's away record in the Premier League in 2024 is absolutely insane. 11 games, 10 wins, 1 draw, which was at the Etihad, 0 minutes trailing in any of those games. 0 minutes trailing. 3 goals conceded. These are levels I've not seen in my lifetime, levels we never achieved under Wenger, and it's so satisfying to be shaking off the tag we acquired in the 2010s of being that nice footballing team, but ultimately a bit rubbish on the road and a bit rubbish against the Big Six. We are a proper football team now, and it's amazing to witness. Arsenal are historically associated with free-flowing, attacking football, but Sunday was a display of something different. We showed grit, tenacity, broke on Spurs, and asked them different questions from ones that we maybe normally do. I noticed a few people frustrated at the style of football we played, which I understand long term, but when you consider, and I am going to repeat this for the people at the back, we had our entire first choice midfield out, I did find that frustration pretty mad. I've even seen some likening it to Mourinho ball in a pejorative manner. But to me, that's a compliment. One of Arteta's big messages in pre-season was about how for Arsenal to take the next step, we need to be able to win in any context. And he repeated it again on Sunday. First team players out, red cards, controlling games, high press, low block, raining, snowing, earthquakes. We need to be a team that can compete in every single environment if we want to beat the robots up north. And that is absolutely what we did on Sunday. We showed another face to this team as we delivered a perfectly executed game plan. Call it Mourinho ball all you want, but we know we're capable of playing other games. And considering Mourinho ball works in some contexts, wouldn't we rather have it in our locker? Where I do like the Mourinho comparison, though, is the defensive security and the investment from the team. I do see that. That's when Mourinho was at his best, when his teams fought for everything in that period around 2004, 2005. And the most impressive thing to me about the performance on Sunday was the buy-in from the entire team to get the result. That is Mourinho-esque. Every single player running for one another, committing to every duel, pushing in every action. We must be one of the most bought-in teams in world football right now, by which I mean a team that commits to the manager's plan and execution, absolutely with no question marks. The execution was top. Soaking up pressure and trying to hit Spurs on the counter and going for set pieces, their weakness. Patience in our mid-block, not getting baited into jumping when Maddison or Kulusevski dropped out. Raya going long early on, committing to finding Havertz, who had a brilliant game for winning his battles, before slowly in the second half being willing to go short again as we tried to bait them in. There was no panic. We took our time in this game, knowing our chances would come later on. Our concentration off the ball for the whole 90 minutes is sublime. And I want you to have a look at this sequence from around 20 minutes in to see what I mean. Familiar 4-4-2 mid-block. As we suggested in our previous video, Havertz taking the Odegaard role out of possession, and Jorginho and Partey as our double pivot, marking the movements of Kulusevski and Maddison respectively. Ball comes into Maddison, who drops, so Partey applies pressure, but watch how Saliba reacts, jumping forward a touch in a combined movement with Partey like they're on a string to stop Solanke receiving in the pocket. Gabriel adjusts his positioning, and Jorginho just tucks in a touch to cover all the bases. Lovely. Here, ball with Romero, nice compact shape, options out wide on the left to pass to, but the inside lanes are blocked. Ball comes back over, and Saka is already on the move to block off Bentancur's next pass before he's even received it. Something we do so well, anticipating the lanes, the options, and blocking them off. That means Saka can get out quickly to Udogie and blocks off his options, but again, it's the movement inside I want to highlight. Saliba runs with, I think that's Kulusevski, and Jorginho steps over to cover that space. Partey adjusts his position slightly, stops the inside pass, forces Spurs back, and White covers Son. Ball over on the right this time. And actually Spurs get through as we overcommit. Jorginho, Trossard and Martinelli not quite reading the intelligent movement inside from Kulusevski. But then all three immediately recover to apply pressure on Brennan Johnson and form a shape to push him back. Look at the other players inside too. All goal side of their man while this is happening in case a ball is put into the box. I wish I could show that as actual footage, but I can't because of copyright. but the little things we do for each other, the covering, the relative movements, the little adjustments, they're all so impressive. It's not luck that Spurs can't break us down. We're just incredibly well coached, and we've concentrated hard for 90 minutes, which isn't easy. And every single time that ball breaks, minute 1 or minute 90, we work back quickly and recover into position. I wish there was some data to show this, but I don't see any team, just from the eye test, other than City, do the recoveries as quickly, efficiently, and consistently as us, getting back into position once the ball is turned over. And even those on the fringe of the squad are more than ready to contribute when called upon, which tells you what you need to know about the culture. Jorginho's last game before Sunday was Italy's last game in the Euros, but he was ready to put in 90 minutes and suffer to get what we needed, often stepping up and pressing over long distances in the course of the match. We needed him, and he stepped up. And we also fight for each other, quite literally. When Timber had his altercation with Vicario, the entire Arsenal team, other than Raya, came over to support. Every single player is there to stand up for their teammate. Timber's okay then to walk away, and Jorginho, captain on the day, is speaking to the referee. I think back to that Ben White moment with John McGinn. You can say you have each other's backs in interviews all you want, but the proof's in the pudding. And while no one wants to see actual violence, when you have a group of players who clearly want to support each other, clearly do want to stand up for one another when things are getting tasty, that must be an incredibly enriching environment to be in. And what's more impressive is this buy-in has taken time. When Sterling goes forward in about the 89th minute, just watch what happens when he loses the ball. Everyone else knows what to do. You run back immediately. Sterling will get this in time. It's not a criticism, but he's used to being in an environment at Chelsea where maybe he didn't have to work so hard. And you can see he lags behind in that moment, taking that extra 2-3 seconds to react to the turnover. Again, Jorginho cramping up, hobbling, knows he has to run, and does. The culture hasn't quite got to him yet, but it will. You're at Arsenal now, mate. We fight and we run for each other. While there definitely was a Mourinho-type quality that we displayed on Sunday, we know Arteta and this team are a little bit more multifaceted than that. Arteta can coach a press, a mid-block, a deep block, and recruits the sort of defenders who can do that, but he can also coach a team who scored the record amount of Premier League goals for Arsenal 2 years in a row. He can coach a team who tear Chelsea apart at the Emirates, who take 4 points off City last season, who tear apart Lens in the Champions League, or Bayer Leverkusen in pre-season. Arteta can do the Mourinho thing as a means to an end, and he will do it again. But he can also do all the other stuff, and to win big things, you need that. But beyond that, you need something more than just coaching to get that total buy-in we saw on Sunday. It's something Arteta has that I think is hugely underrated by the mainstream, and I think it's a quality we'll increasingly look for in managers at the top level: high emotional intelligence. It's something he admires in others, recently signing his new contract and speaking about the Cronkies in these terms you can see here, but you can only recognise it in others when you first see it in yourself. I'm not trying to suggest other managers like Mourinho have no emotional intelligence. Mourinho did and does. It's not black and white. And in fact, I would suggest most of us have it on an innate level. It just gets blocked or distorted. But one of the reasons, at least in my view, that Mourinho hasn't managed to translate as well as he might have done through the years as when he first came in, is he's been a bit slow on the uptake with how modern leaders manage effectively. Things have changed. People have changed. It's not 2004. Communication and messaging is more key than it has ever been because of the aggressive analysis of the news cycle, but mainly because player influence is higher than ever. So you have to watch what you say and who you alienate. Dressing rooms are more powerful than ever as players hold the keys. Mourinho managed to make enemies wherever he went because that was his style. Strongman, shame you into action, provoke you into giving him a reaction on the pitch. And for some, for a time, it worked. But for the likes of Pogba, Shaw, Kaká, Eto'o, Ozil, Casillas and so on, it really didn't. And that's before we even speak about other managers, referees, and so on. At some point, as happened for him at United, players will stop playing for you because you've lost their respect. I suspect he's reflected on that, and actually I found him to be a lot more accepting of the changes in football culture in a recent interview with Rio Ferdinand, but I do think it's historically held him back. Of course, Arteta hasn't been afraid to make enemies at times himself, but it's always been in the best interests of the club, in my view, not his personal ego. It's just not who he is. And nowadays, his messaging is just superb. He's always complimentary in public, despite us knowing that he can be challenging and demanding behind the scenes. We know he fronts up for his players, as we saw in All or Nothing, berating them in the dressing room, but telling them that of course he'll defend them to the media. He always speaks about our people, the love he has for the players, how privileged he is to be here. And we know, as we've covered before on this channel, this isn't just because things are going well. This is just who he is. He's a positive reinforcer and a great modern leader who can also park the bus and give you a kick up the arse if needed. And all of that messaging, all of that emotional intelligence, protecting his players, raising them up, demanding them to be better, but supporting them to do so, that is what gets buy-in in 2024. In almost every work culture, I can only speak for the UK, but certainly from my experience, we're moving past the shaming, shouting, bullying stuff. And that's why Arteta and these modern coaches are getting the results, because that's what people really respond to. Arteta loves his players, and we know they love him. And that's a huge factor in being able to deliver a plan as we did. This stuff matters. Being likable, being affable, being emotionally intelligent, it's not soft factor. So it made me even more happy to look across the touchline on Sunday and see a manager who I don't like. And more importantly, I can see why players and certain people in the club wouldn't like either. And so I think it caps the amount of success that Ange can have. That's how big a factor I think this is. This isn't an Arsenal versus Spurs thing. This is just a human being thing. I'd say the same thing if he was Arsenal manager. And I've said this for a long time, by the way. But the way Ange Postecoglou speaks to reporters is just not okay, in my perspective. He's argumentative, he's arrogant, he's condescending. His tone of voice is just incredibly rude at times, and we're seeing it more and more. To the, yeah, but journalists ask stupid questions crowd, please just take a couple of seconds to think about this. If you're a journalist working for the Mirror or the Sun or Sky or whatever, you have to ask those questions. Yes, you're looking for a headline, but your boss is telling you you have to ask those questions or you don't have a job. You are trying to get a headline, of course, but that's the game. It's not your fault that the media space is set up in the way it is. And Ange seems to take it as some kind of personal affront when someone asks him a probing question, as if the reporter in front of him is the one who decided how the media space was to be set up. Reporters and journalists are normal, working people like you or I, and they deserve our respect. And I don't care what pressure you're under, you don't talk to anyone the way he does, in my opinion. Especially when you know they can't talk back to you because they'd lose their job. I'd go as far as saying it's an abuse of power. Arteta is asked stupid questions, as every manager is, but he knows the game. He laughs it off, he says no comment, there's a glint in his eye, and that will be translating behind the scenes. Players aren't stupid. They can feel when a manager's out of control, lashing back, talking over people, being rude, and that will have an effect. I predict problems down the road for them if he carries on like this, but frankly, watching him, it makes me even more proud to have the manager that we do. Arteta knows how to coach a team, but he also knows the media game, and that, in some ways, is the harder bit, the more subtle bit. You can't do your coaching badges in emotional intelligence. But to get buy-in like we saw on Sunday, this is all part of the picture. Positive, clear, direct communication. Arteta is not the new Mourinho, and thank God he isn't the new Ange, for many reasons. Our club motto is Victoria, Concordia, Crescit. Victory through harmony. And that is exactly what Arteta has managed to create.
If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a coffee.